How on earth was Warwick Kappa at a Carlton Mad Monday?
Yeah, so the Wiz,
Ready for takeoff!
he turned up at Mad Monday back in 2019. So I think it was Daisy's last. And Daisy, when he came to Carlton, I think someone asked him in the media when he first got to the footy club, why the 39? He brought up, well, he sure wears 39, one of my good friends. And you know, Warwick Kappa was an idol growing up, so that's why I'm wearing the 39. And he might have just been having a little bit of a lend, but the Wiz just ate it all up and just, I think he hit Daisy up saying, well, let's catch up. So Daisy turned up to Mad Monday dressed as Wiz, and he brought Wiz dressed up as Daisy. And I think he was employed for 2 hours to be there, the Wiz, and he was there for 10.
I might be blonde, but I'm not stupid, guys.
G'day sports fans, our special guest today, Marc Murphy, a man who dominated the footy field with 300 magnificent games for Carlton and now has a very keen interest in horse racing. Welcome, Murph.
Thanks, Quinny. Good to be here.
Now, Winx's foal sold for $10 million. So I went through the history books and I said, I want to find a footy player that if they were going through the sales ring would have fetched something similar, and you were the first man that came to mind.
Why's that?
Well, your dad was a legend, your granddad was a legend, and you must have just eaten pressure for breakfast, because it must have been pretty tough in those days with a very famous family to follow.
Yeah, some strong pedigree, I suppose, when you've got the my grandfather play 130 odd games for Hawthorn, won a couple of BNFs, and my old man, I think he won 7 BNFs in the end at Fitzroy, and played a little bit at South and North Melbourne. So anyway, we've decided not to go to the father and son route anyway. We've all gone to different clubs, which we're still trying to find a premiership. Unfortunately, now that I'm done now, it's up for the fourth generation, my son, hopefully.
Now, well, we'll go down that path as well. And you created history because you were the first grandfather, father, son to play 100 games or more. So simply sensational. But with that would have come a bit of pressure. And with that did come some tough decisions, because you could have gone to the Brisbane Lions under the father-son rule. They just won 3 premierships in a row. They just made 4 grand finals in a row before having a bit of a dip, and it might have been like going to a house party at 2 a.m.
Yeah, you're spot on. I was so the back end of their run, winning 3 in a row, Brisbane Lions. There's some fairly handy names up there. So I was lucky enough to go train up there with the likes of Michael Voss and Nigel Lappin, Luke Power, Jason Ackermanis, Jonathan Brown, just stars everywhere. Obviously coached by Lee Matthews. So it was a tough phone call to make to Lethal Lee to say I wasn't going to come up there. But you're right, it is like turning up to a party probably at 2 a.m. They're probably past their best, aren't they? And maybe I thought they were on the downslope, but anyway, ended up at Carlton, who were well and truly on the downslope, weren't they?
Well, they were on the way up, the Blues, and it had been a tough few years for Carlton, so no doubt their supporters were absolutely elated you decided to go down that path. So what was it like when you were going to Brisbane and they probably thought you were heading there?
Yeah, so let's go back about 19 years. I was going into the rooms every time Brisbane played in Melbourne, and just loved watching the likes of those superstars I mentioned earlier go about their business, and that was still a very, very good side. So I was lucky enough to go to a couple of those grand finals and go in the rooms post those games as well. And I trained up there for about 2 weeks. Jonathan Brown took me underneath his wing, and Justin Lepich as well, and went out to the cast for the boys when I was about 16 or 17. So that was a good experience as well. But yeah, loved training up there. Got Michael Voss's boots. He's a size 10. I was a size 11. Still managed to try and slip into them though, Quinny. Yeah, it was a tough call. They gave me a 4-year deal at the time, so you usually get the standard 2-year deal that any draftee would get, and then plus another 2, which was pretty big money for a 17-year-old to look at. But just played the remainder of my year at Whitefriars College, where I went to school, and then at Oakley Chargers, and was lucky enough to be one of the top picks in that year. And I think the first 9 picks were all Melbourne-based, so it was pretty obvious I was going to stay in Melbourne and wanted to play in the heartland of Melbourne rather than go up to Brisbane.
Okay, I can't imagine it was easy though, ringing Lee Matthews to say thanks but no thanks.
No, it's certainly one of the tougher calls I've had to make, and it was really good, Lethal, but had to go down to the old study downstairs and next to the rumpus room on the old landline and dial the digits of Lee Matthews. It was pretty daunting as an 18-year-old to do that. He wished me all the best, and then called Luke Power, who I had a fair bit to do with as well, and Craig Lambert. So I did the right thing and called all the people that were really great to me. They were a terrific club at the time, so it was certainly a tough one to make a call to probably the greatest player of all time and one of the great coaches.
Do you think they were surprised when you declined the offer?
I think the more the season went on in that under 18 year, I think they probably understood that I was going to stay down in Melbourne. I was obviously Carlton, Collingwood, and Hawthorn, Essendon, Richmond all had those top picks. So I was going to go to a club that was one of the big clubs as well. It would have been interesting if there was like a Fremantle down there. I probably might have just gone straight to Brisbane, but was lucky enough at the time that it was all Melbourne based. But I think I made the good call. I certainly would make the same call again.
Now, you mentioned you were going to be one of the top draft picks. Well, you were the top draft pick, the number one draft pick in what I would now describe as the new super draft. Because you look back through your draft, it was every bit as good as any draft there's ever been. You were number 1, Dale Thomas number 2, Josh Kennedy number 4, Scott Pendlebury number 5. So that's just absolutely sensational. And then the likes of Nathan Jones, Sean Higgins and Grant Birchall as well. So it was a terrific crop.
Yeah, some superstars through there, and it was good, just following each other's careers over the journey. We all played against each other in the under-18s and in sort of AIS camps and everything together. So, certainly have a great respect for those guys and what they were able to do over such a long period of time. A lot of 300 gamers in there, a lot of premiership players. Shannon Hearn's another one that was in there that you didn't mention. He was a superstar for the Eagles for a long period of time. But, yeah, some good guys that fortunate enough to call mates as well and enjoy sharing the field together.
Now, I'm sure there's some games you remember quite clearly, and your first game, that's probably something that's always going to be with you, up against the D's at Docklands, and You have a great game, kick a goal, and the Blues get the win. Yeah,
it was in Cooter's 250th as well, so played my first game and went okay, got an early touch and kicked a goal. I had a set shot from probably 30 out, did the old draw high free kick, Quinny, that I sort of managed to do quite a bit over the journey too. So played in a win and played against the D's. It was awesome sharing the circle with Cooter in the middle in your first game playing AFL.
Now, there's obviously lots of games you could remember quite clearly. I want to ask you about a strange one, 2013. The Blues sneak into the finals at Essendon's expense. What was the lead up to that like?
It was interesting. I suppose you go back 2 weeks prior to the finals and we played against Essendon at the time and I think they knew that they were going to get knocked out. They weren't going to feature. So we knew we had to go to Port Adelaide the following week and win that, and then we could play finals that season. But it was a really, really weird 2 or 3 weeks. It was almost like our season was just dead and buried, and then all of a sudden we got a new hope and found a way to find ourselves in the finals. I think it was 6 goals down against Port over there at Footy Park. Found a way to win that, and then played against Richmond, who obviously finished 5th. We finished 9th. They had all those years of finishing 9th, Richmond, and then to be beaten by a 9th place team in the first week of finals was pretty huge. And just the build up around town, Richmond playing Carlton in a final was awesome. And I've never been involved in a crowd so loud before in my life. I reckon there was probably 60,000 Richmond supporters who probably were all booking their tickets to go up to Sydney the following week, and we just found a way to win.
You mentioned the crowd, and that was the one thing that stood out to me. I've been to grand finals. I've been to some of the most important games. I've never heard the MCG that loud, and it just kept getting louder and louder in that second half as Carlton polled on goal after goal.
Oh, it was incredible. Still get chills thinking about it. You can sort of almost place yourself in the moments that occurred. I remember every part of that second half, and there's probably a lot of games I would have played in my career I can't remember a thing of, but that game just certainly sticks out. And still remember Jeffy Garlett doing a little hurdle over one of the contests later in the game to run into an open goal, and just the cheer was huge. Probably only beaten really against probably Carlton Melbourne last year in the final that I was watching from the crowds, and it's actually the first time I've lost my voice playing or watching footy in my lifetime last year. But yeah, just when the Carlton fans are buzzing, there's no better place to play it than the G.
Now, before we pivot to some questions that are a little more lighthearted and bring the racing into the question, 300 games for one club. It's an amazing achievement. It shows great loyalty. I know there were lots of clubs that were trying to get you towards the back end of your career. Did you ever think about leaving, and who was the closest to getting you to go?
I suppose 2015, I think it was. I was thinking about going to Richmond at that point. I had a few troublesome years with injury and just thought maybe a fresh start once we were looking for a new coach, but met with Brendan Bolden and wanted to be part of the new rebuild and try and get some of these young guys up and going, and then also be part of the new drafted players coming in to try and almost take the club again back up the top. But that was pretty close. That was probably the closest I ever got. I met with Damien Hardwick about what they were thinking, where they could see me playing in their side. And then Geelong were probably the last one, probably back in 2019, I think it was. At that point in time, I could see Charlie Curnow being a superstar, Harry Mackay and Jacob Wiedering. Obviously, Paddy Cripps is going to be the player that he is now. So I just thought we were on that cusp of doing what sort of Hawthorn did when Shane Crawford played in his final game and winning a flag, and hopefully those young guys taking me to the promised land. But unfortunately, that wasn't to be. But probably Richmond and Geelong were probably the closest I got.
So you've said no to Lee Matthews, Jonathan Brown, Damien Hardwick, and Chris Scott.
Yeah, well,
you're a pretty brave man.
Well, yeah, maybe I'm silly as well. I don't know, but anyway, it's sort of just like I considered making the move, and then you sort of just know in your gut whether or not it's right or not. And I didn't really want to leave Carlton, and I'd always been preaching to these younger players about sticking through the hard times, and eventually the good times will come. So sort of felt like I was dishonouring my word if I left.
And the irony of Jonathan Brown sledging you about being disloyal, and you played 300 games for the one club. So well done, and I know Blues supporters are still delirious that you stayed put. Now, at about the same time that Carlton starts to take off, the racing industry says, oh, this bloke might be worth latching on to because he doesn't mind the horses, very well presented, talks well, and you started to get a few jobs in the racing industry. Tell us about your first one, which I think was for the relaxed racing.
Yeah, so back in 2013 or 14 or whatever it was, the relaxed racing was a new concept, trying to just outside of the Spring Carnival, I think the feature race is the Blue Diamond. So leading into that was pretty good fun. I've been involved for horses for a few years up until that point, so was keen to be involved and for new punters to come and experience a new relaxed racing type of atmosphere, and it's done really well ever since. So maybe I was the reason why it did so well.
There are now people wearing shorts at the races, and you're the man to thank.
Yeah, correct.
So how did you get into following horse racing?
Just a player sponsor of mine at Carlton was a big supporter of mine, obviously, and became really good friends with him. And he dabbled in a few horses, and I thought I may as well get involved with him. And I had probably, I don't know, 12 or 13 probably by the end of it, and still got a few going around at the moment, Quinny. But the first one I had was Armed for Action, and that was a third place getter in a Blue Diamond. So it's usually the case with horse owners who are not you don't call them victims, Quinny, but they think it's pretty easy, and I thought it was pretty easy having a third place winner in a Group 1 back in 2012, and purchased a few more since then, Quinny. Still trying to find that elusive Group 1.
It's been lean picking since. I want to talk to you about Armed for Action because this was an absolute star, and this is probably the best and worst thing that could happen to someone that's just going into the horse ownership. You go to Mornington. Well, tell us about the horse. How did you get in the horse, and tell us about the lead up before I talk about the first couple of starts.
Yeah, just with that player sponsor, Ben Wilson, who he's quite a big horse owner himself now. He reckons he's got about 40 or 50 going around. Probably shouldn't say that with his wife listening, probably, but he just loves the horse. He's been so close to a Group 1 himself, and he tipped me into that one with a mate of mine, and we stuck around and actually watched that in the Blue Diamond. We had a pre-season game over in Adelaide, and Brett Ratton was good enough to let me stick back and watch it. If we won, he said you could have stayed and do some training the next day yourself. But unfortunately came third, so I had to fly over and meet the boys.
Well, hopefully they bet each way. But we'll talk about that debut performance. So you've got this horse going round. You're new to the experience. I'm tipping there was a good tip for it because on race day, she was $2.20 into $1.55 and absolutely bolted in.
Yeah, I had none of it, Quinny. So at $2, thinking, oh, well, I'll watch this and hopefully it goes well, and then maybe next time I'll get on it. So, absolutely bolted in, just went straight to the front, didn't look back, and from there, we knew we had a good one.
And then they say, we're going to lift the bar, go to Adelaide for a listed race.
Yep.
This time there was no $2.20. She opened $1.60. Punters took that, $1.60 into $1.35, and it was rinse and repeat.
Yep. Well, I took a bit of the 160, but didn't take enough of it looking back. But got some black type on it there, and then we thought, geez, we've got a really sharp one here out of an Exceed and Excel. So we're starting to get pretty excited at this point.
And what was the stable saying? Were they surprised at how good the race day performances were and then continue to raise the bar, or were they pretty up and about from day dot?
Didn't give away too much, to be honest with it. Anthony Friedman doesn't give away too much in his reports. He's pretty calm, collected, and doesn't elaborate too much. So you could quietly tell that they were pretty confident in the way in which it had been going, that it was going to feature pretty heavily. But I think even when it ran the Blue Diamond, I think it was about $15 maybe, or you probably got the odds there.
Even a little bit longer than that.
Longer than that, was it? Yeah. So it sort of was going to be a long shot for it to win, but you never know your luck.
And ran a terrific race, ran third behind Samaretti. So what was it like after that? Were you a bit numb? Do you look back now and say, I probably didn't appreciate how wonderful an experience it was? Did you think the success would keep rolling? What were you thinking after the race?
I thought geez, it's an easy gig, isn't it, horse racing? It was actually the first race I went to and watched it, so maybe I shouldn't have gone, but it loomed on the turn. I thought, geez, well, I think we're good here. We didn't go the early crow, but we're sitting there with a few mates, just like holding each other back on, hang on a second. But did really well in the end just to hold on and finish third. I didn't get anywhere near it to win. Samaretti was a superstar. But, the boys celebrated like they'd won.
Yep.
I had to fly over to Adelaide and play. So anyway, it was a good experience nonetheless, and something you look back on. And you get nervous playing footy, but I've never been as nervous than watching that Group 1. Just almost sitting there shaking, really.
Is it a feeling of helplessness? Like, because if you're going out to the footy field, there's 95,000 in the MCG, you have an impact on how it goes. But you are just helpless when you're watching your horse go round.
Yeah, I think that's it. You play professional football and you've got your preparation in hand, you know exactly what to do, how to go about it. It's all on your shoulders and your teammates. Whereas when you're a horse owner, it's you sort of don't know what to expect. You're just hoping that it runs well and that the jockey gives it an opportunity to get out and to run on well. But it's just always been the case. Whenever I have watched any of my horses, I sit there like unbelievably nervous.
So you're talking about your nerves and the stress and whatnot. So you do what any sane person would do now. You're going to go get more Carlton people to go down the same path.
Well, yeah, we've had quite a few teammates who have loved their horse racing, and now we've developed a little syndicate of a few past players and a few past administrators and some current day players that we're hoping that we can try and snag one. So we've got a syndicate of about 5 horses at the moment called the Baggers Naggers syndicate. So
Baggers Naggers.
Baggers Naggers.
Who's got the horses?
Waller's got a few. The Hayes boys got a couple. So anyway, we're watching on, but they're more the stayers type. So we've got one young 2-year-old, but the others are proven horses that we've been tipped into. So we'll hopefully they can feature in spring.
How many in the ownership group?
We've got 10. We've got 10 in our syndicate. So there's a few big names in there that quietly like their racing.
Going to give them up?
Oh, they'll give them up, no doubt. Yeah, so got the skipper leading from the front, Paddy Cripps, Juddy's in there. I think Walshy and a few other boys have gone on to other clubs who are in there now. So anyway, we're hoping that, and what it's all about with being involved in racing is doing it with your mates and going to the races and enjoying the day out at the races. That's why I got into it initially. So hopefully one of those horses can feature on a good race day and we can go there and watch it and go into the mounting yard and experience all the good side of racing. And
especially if you're doing it with past and present players and administrators, it's a great way to keep in contact, keep communicating, and with an aim to it.
Oh, and the WhatsApp group's one of the funner ones to be involved in too. So now we're starting to see. So we've only had it for 2 or 3 months. So the little syndicate. So we're looking forward to the bit of the banter that comes with it. But you're right. It's all about the communication, staying involved with one another, having that excuse to go and do something together. So hopefully one of these horses can, for our sake, can deliver a little bit for us and in the city. We can all get along and ride at home.
And across the board, going to the races is a very popular pastime with past and present players. It's a good opportunity to go and mingle and let your hair down a bit. And a lot of times I do notice it's great to see players from different clubs having a beer, having a chat, because you don't get to do that much. Who were some players that were just different to what you thought they'd be like off the field? Oh,
it's a good question. Trying to think back to that international rules. So
Or just in general, when you've come across players from other teams and they might be really intense on the field. I mean, Glenn Archer's a prime example for mine. The first time I met him, I'm like, what a lovely guy.
Oh, yeah, he's. I'm glad you mentioned Glenn Archer because I wore the number 11 on the back, being a North Melbourne supporter growing up. And you're right, like he was as hard as anyone who's ever played the game. And then you meet him and just a gentle human being. So he's a ripper. But I think probably Chris Judd's one that people probably don't really understand a lot about. They think he's pretty straight down the line, a bit of a nerd type of bloke, but he loves a bit of banter more than anyone, Judd man. So he features heavily in the WhatsApp group.
That would be a surprise because he's a little bit guarded with his public image. So it'd be interesting. You'd know him better than anyone with all those games you played with him, and good to see he's good on the lip.
He's good on the lip. Yeah, he used to ask the boys for 3 words, and he'd get at the front and he'd do a rap and include those 3 words in his rap. So he's very intelligent, Juddy, and had a bit of a hand at trying to do the special comments and a bit of work on radio. But I think he found his niche in the market capacity at the moment.
I think he's making more money than all of us put together.
No doubt he is.
Now, we've all got some wonderful punting stories. We've all got lots of punting stories. Some we love, some don't love us back. But whenever we talk about Vow and Declare winning the Melbourne Cup, your eyes light up, and so did your wallet.
They do, and I'm surprised Ladbrokes invited me back after fleecing them there the first 4 back in 2019. At the Melbourne Cup. The Melbourne Cup you go to and you don't expect to really win. It's a hard feature, isn't it, to try and to win when you've got 24 horses running around the Melbourne Cup, and then even all the lead-up races. It's a bit of a lottery trying to pick winners on that day. So it's usually a pretty tough day. But yeah, Melbourne Cup sitting there at the in the bird cage, probably rubbing shoulders with yourself, Quinny, at that time. I was putting my first 4 together because it's always a very large pool and sort of expect that you might get lucky. So I included 6 horses in my first 4, boxed them all up. I think I put about $110 on. Don't know why I put 110 on, but anyway, I did that. Had my numbers there, and then I was standing next to, I like dropping names, Quinny, but Ricky Ponting I used to love as growing up, and fortunate enough to have a few mutual friends. So I was standing near Punter, and he goes, "Oh, you're including 3, are you?" I said, "Nah, I'm not including the 3. No, I wouldn't even think about putting it in my first 10. He goes, "I'll put it in. I reckon always put your number in." So anyway, threw it in, and then that finished fourth or third. There was a protest on the first 4 too, but they were all horses that I had included in my first 4. So standing there shaking that I've won the first 4 when Vow and Declare has got up. So Danny O'Brien's obviously trained that. So standing with a few connections that he knows. So I've backed Vow and Declare. I've backed Prince of Iran as well. So they've obviously come 1-2. Didn't put them on for the Quinella, but first 4's paid pretty handsomely, and I've had about 30% of it.
Magnificent. I'm actually going to look up what that paid so I can work out exactly how much you've won. So you're in the
tell you if you want.
You're in the position, there was that protest, but you had it regardless. So you were not stressing about the protest. It might have just tinkered with how much you won.
Cost me a couple grand, unfortunately, Quinny. But when I was staring down the barrel of a first 4 collect, I was pretty happy with myself. But I was continually doing the swipe up after it got through. So the protest got upheld, and the odds changed a little bit. But I was still pretty happy having that collect.
Yeah, it's a nice problem to have when you get it and there's a protest that goes against you and it only costs you a couple of grand off the collect. So what do you do after that? What's Marc Murphy like after picking up 50,000 on a first 4?
Oh, I wouldn't say it was 50, but
I just threw the bait out just to sort of see.
Wasn't far off, no. But fair to say we had a pretty good day after that, and everyone around me had backed Vow and Declare as well. So. I think we ventured off to Crown after the race had finished and talked about how good we were. But anyway, racing it's a tough industry, and I've sort of trying to find my way back ever since, and been close to a few 4s since. But just shows you how hard they are to get.
It is very hard. That's why they pay so well when you get them. So what did you do? Did you clear out all the money? Did you leave a bit to play with? Did you treat yourself?
I didn't treat myself, which I'm disappointed with, although I did buy a horse out of it.
Yeah, I think that might count as treating yourself.
Did its tendon, not too far in. So the gods, they find a way to bring you back down to earth. But I had a good evening at, I think it was Rockpool, and may have shouted a few wines there. But I put a bit into buying a horse and didn't work out for me, and then it just held on a little bit.
Now, you mentioned the racing. It's always great fun in a social setting, and no doubt a lot of footy trips, having a bet, going to the pub came into it. What are some of the occasions you can think back that we had a really good day out? Not necessarily won money punting, but just good fun doing it.
There's lots of good times. We had a footy trip over to Hong Kong. Unfortunately, the organiser didn't look into the fact that Happy Valley wasn't racing on that Wednesday night.
Oh, you're joking.
So we planned a 5-day trip. We got Sha Tin, but as anyone who's been over to Hong Kong understands, Sha Tin's not really a party atmosphere, and it was quite a boring day. Tough day as well when you're on your 4th day.
Yes.
On a footy trip. So we rolled into to Wednesday all expecting to go to Happy Valley, and then someone looked up and thought it's not on the dot. So I had to make alternative plans. But I think the ones I enjoy, obviously, you love the spring racing days, but I actually like going to the regional ones too and experiencing that. So I've been down to the Bull on a couple of occasions. Good down there. It's nice and cold, but I like the sort of the different tracks to go to. I love Cox Plate Day as well. That's probably one of my favourite ones. Had a not a bad win at a Manikato night a few years ago too. So I was actually on Chris Judd's horse paying 99-1 that I backed. That Judd man unfortunately forgot that it was running.
You're joking.
Yeah. So I can't remember what year that was. Oh, Cefalù. It was Cefalù.
Kefaloo, former Chilean horse, I think it was.
Yeah. So I think he was involved with Dennis Committee and maybe Matty Pavlich or something. I don't know how he was involved in that, obviously with his connections maybe in the West, but I was doing a little sporty at the
cashy, we call it, yeah.
A little cashy. So I was already a couple ahead for that stage, Quinny, and then I was lucky enough to back a 99-1 winner.
So you just looked up and said, "Oh, Kefaloo, Juddy owns that. I'll have a little something on it."
Yeah, I'll have 20 on that. So anyhow, it was not a bad little investment.
Did he forget it was running or forgot to back it?
Both.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, so, always a bit dirty. He was like, I wasn't going to put much on it anyway. It's still 100-1.
You don't need to have that much on.
No, exactly right.
Now, you've mentioned off-air Dale Thomas, because we were talking about Warwick Capper. We had him on our podcast last series. Very entertaining man, mad as a cut snake.
Yep.
And he ended up at one of your Mad Mondays. And my head was spinning, saying, how on earth was Warwick Capper at a Carlton Mad Monday?
Yeah, so the Wiz, he turned up at Mad Monday back in 2019. So I think it was Daisy's last, I think. And Daisy, when he came to Carlton, obviously wearing the 39, and I think someone asked him in the media when he first got to the footy club, why the 39? He brought up, well, he sure wears 39, one of my good friends. And, Warwick Capper was an idol growing up, so that's why I'm wearing the 39. And he might have just been having a little bit of a lend, but the Wiz just ate it all up and I think he hit Daisy up, saying, well, let's catch up. Anyway, I don't think they really ever did, but we used to take a little bit of the mickey out of Daisy about the Wiz and their connection. So Daisy turned up to Mad Monday dressed as Wiz, and he brought Wiz dressed up as Daisy. And I think he was employed for 2 hours to be there, the Wiz, and he was there for 10.
My goodness, he would have been his absolute element with blokes half his age on Mad Monday.
He certainly was, and we actually tried to wind up the day and try and get everyone in Ubers, and Wiz didn't really want to borrow that, so we had to stick it on with the Wiz in the front bar.
Yeah, I think he's a seasoned campaigner. I think he's had plenty of practice at those bars and plenty of practice at the Mad Mondays, and I wouldn't want to be drinking with him.
No, we learnt pretty quickly to try and avoid him after a few hours, but no, he's a good character, and kept on trying to take hangers on blokes, so it was an interesting day.
Total pest, I think would be the best way to describe him. Now, at the top of the show, we mentioned about your family legacy and the fact that you did create history with grandfather, father and yourself playing 100 or more games. Before we talk about the chance of that continuing and sort of what sort of role you'd have in that, what does that mean when you look back and you say, this is what our family's done and no one had ever done it before?
I think it was awesome for more the whole family as a whole to have my pa who played 130 odd games at Hawthorn. It was a dour back pocket from all reports. So the defensive traits didn't really flow on to my old man, who's more of a kicking goals midfielder, and then myself. But the old man obviously played a lot of football. He's in the Hall of Fame as well, and unfortunately for all of us, we didn't play in finals, but to have that sort of legacy from one generation to the next is pretty cool for the family to look back on. And even my son, knowing that his great-grandfather played at Hawthorn, and even he's a 6-year-old, asked, well, why didn't Pa play for Hawthorn then?
Yeah.
I was like, well, maybe you have to ask him the question yourself because he cost us about 9 flags. But I think whatever Max chooses to do down the track, he was big into soccer the last couple of months, but now footy's back. He's sort of found that thirst for footy again, and he thinks he's going to be a Carlton player when he's older.
Now, I've put no pressure on my kids to emulate me in the sporting prowess because I've got no ability whatsoever. As a youngster, did you ever feel pressure, or was it something that you were oblivious to, or it didn't bother you?
I was actually oblivious to it. Yeah, I don't know if the old man playing for Fitzroy, who wasn't really like one of the big clubs and had anything to do with it, but yeah, I didn't feel any pressure from Dad or from I've got two older brothers as well. We were always just cricket in the summer and footy in the winter, and didn't really take too much notice of anything other than until I got to about 15 or 16 and started to do okay. The limelight started to come a little bit, and people would go, well, that's John Murphy's son who played 250 games of footy, and his grandfather did as well. So I think that was probably the only time it started to, I started to become aware of it.
I should have said at the top of the show, there's no room for modesty because you don't do okay, as you put it, and win a Lark medal. I think you're understating do okay a little bit. Tearing up the under-18 competition, which would be how I'd describe it.
Oh, yeah, it was a few years ago, Quinny, so you sort of forget these things. But yeah, it was those under-18 championships are awesome to play in, and won two of those national champs in bottom age and then top age. So yeah, won a Lark medal to go with it, so it wasn't too bad.
Now, as a father with Max, will you be a hands-off father? Will you be coaching him with no pressure? What will you be like? Because you seem a pretty relaxed sort of character.
I reckon I'll get involved and help out. I think it's good for all the parents who, whether it's Auskick or junior footy or junior sport, just getting involved and helping out where you can. But I don't think I'll be a coach, so to speak, unless it's a rolling fixture where you step in and help out. Pretty keen to maybe take the flags and be the goal umpire, maybe, Quinny. But yeah, I'll certainly take an interest in watching Max run around. He's obviously only 6 and only new into it, but he's got some good skills and loves watching golf too, which I enjoy sitting there and watching a bit of golf. So anyway, we'll get some golfing lessons soon and play all types of sports.
That's a great result because then you just tell Jess, you've got the kids under control and you're just sitting watching the golf.
Correct. Or go to the driving range and hit balls.
That is win-win. Now, Mark, we've loved having a chat today. I'm going to wrap up with a few questions, some racing related, some sport related. Favourite horse and why?
Shatak was my favourite. Yeah, I had a few good wins on it, but I watched it in the Manikato Stakes. I think when Tommy Berry was on it. Was there live for that, and yeah, very rarely do you see a horse do that, let alone at Moody Valley on such a short run home. So he was an absolute freak, and loved the way in which Michael Wayne and John Hawkes used to talk about it. So Shatak was my favourite horse.
Funniest punting story?
Oh, funniest punting story. I'm sure I've got a really funny one, but I had a multi and all up into one of my horses running. It was paying about $4, and the jockey got off it after absolutely butchering it and saying, "I didn't get out of second gear. It'll be great for the next run." After he got off the horse, thanks, mate. It cost me a fortune, but cheers. Thanks for the update.
Thanks for the might need to tinker with how I word that question, but that was very well answered. Yeah, I suppose most frustrating punting story is the best way to go.
I would have thought so. Yeah.
True or false? If you didn't play footy, you would have been a cricketer.
True. I wouldn't have been a great cricketer, but I reckon 2020 could have been my go. Bit slashy outside off stump, Quinny, so I'm not sure my technique was all that sound.
You were better than Aaron Finch, I hear.
Oh, no, I wouldn't have thought so. No, Finchy was my skipper for, I think it was 15s and 17s at state level, and I was more of an all-rounder. He was our number one bat, so I wasn't on the same level as Finchy.
What led you to footy over cricket?
I just came along earlier. Yeah, I actually got cut at under 16s Vic Metro footy, and thought maybe cricket's my goal. I was in the state side for cricket. Got in the AIS as well after the under 17s championships with Finchy, and Davey Warner was in that as well. So I was keen to play cricket, and then footy I started. Believe it or not, I actually grew, even though I'm not really that tall, Quinny, but grew a little bit. And just had a really good couple of years playing footy, and it came around really quickly, and it's hard to knock back playing AFL. When cricket at that time too, 18 or 19 years ago, like you weren't going to make it until you're 23, 24 really anyway. So I think the landscape certainly changed from cricket.
You certainly made the right decision with everything you did on the footy field, that is for sure. Final question, best sledge you've ever heard?
I think everyone's heard Juddy's one where I think it might have been Adam Selwood from the Eagles giving a bit of feedback about his shoulders and back, and he goes, "Oh, that's the reason why they're cooked. It's because I've been carrying you blokes for the last 5 or 6 years." So anyway, that was quite a good one.
Did you hear that? Did you physically hear him say it?
Yeah. Walking back to the centre square. Not a bad one. He goes, "I've got plenty of them, Murph. Don't worry about that."
I love us how you can take us behind the curtain with Juddy because he doesn't let this stuff out. But
No, he doesn't let it out. But he's very, very quick, and so just gave him a bit of a nod, I think, after that one.
I don't know. You couldn't even come back from that. You just tip your cap to him and say, "Well done, Juddy." Murph, you're an absolute superstar. Thanks for having a chat today.
Cheers, mate.